Welcome. This is the last part for the Identify video series, and in this one I'm coloring in the characters. I started by roughly blocking in all the colors for the different rags, trying to find a good color combinations and a good rhythm for all the rag bits. Like, I don't know, evenly space out the oranges and the browns and the reds, or just make sure that they look good over there. Once I was happy with the overall color scheme, I went in and painted in one section of rags at a time. I used pink for this section, just a random bright color that I could see clearly. All I'm looking for is a good clean shape to paint into, and I basically rendered each section of rags all the way to the end, including the edge highlights, any textures or patterns that I lack. For the edge highlights, I paint with white using the same brush that I do all the line work with, and it's just on a layer that sits on top of the color layer set to overlay mode. And I don't exactly know technically what that layer mode is doing, but it'll just brighten up the underlying color and preserve some of the texture. And when I'm highlighting duller surfaces like cloth here, I might reduce the opacity of the brush to about 50% and bump it back up to 100 if I want a little bright spot, or if I'm rendering something shinier like metal. I have his face and hands drawn on separate layers, and they're turned off momentarily so that I can render everything behind them, simply because his body is a little bit ethereal and transparent, so I need to be able to see whatever is behind him. You can see I'm using a very large texture brush to apply some dirt and grime to the sleeves, and those are actual ink marks that I made years ago now. I've been getting a lot of mileage out of that brush. I just, had fun with ink and a little spray bottle and salt, and just made really fun textures that I've been using ever since. I always try to make the hatch lines, whenever possible, follow the contour of the shape I'm trying to render. If you imagine wearing a piece of clothing with stripes on it, imagine what the stripes would do as they bend around the form of your body. I always try to think like that when I'm making the marks. It's not always easy. Sometimes I have to start them in a particular direction to follow a line. It's very difficult technique to describe how to do properly. Hopefully it kind of just makes sense, and it's something you can practice and develop over time if you're interested in that technique. I wanted to mention that even though these videos are edited to look like it's all completed in one sitting, I gotta say, I am getting older, and gone are the days where I can put in 12, 16 hours and just grind out art. I don't know if anyone else is struggling with this, but I can't really get into that, what they call the flow state, very easily anymore. When you're drawing or making any kind of art, basically your brain is making thousands of micro decisions, like one after the other, and personally, I find it very, very taxing. And so lately, I've only been drawing in 20 to 40-minute chunks and just editing it together to make it look like it all came together in an afternoon. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking lots of breaks, but I do feel like it's holding me back from getting more art done. I think I need to learn some techniques to increase my brain power. If you've struggled with this or have any suggestions or tips for me, please let me know in the comments. The highlights I'm making are just there to reinforce the underlying drawing. Like, all the decisions have been made. I'm just trying to enhance some of the forms where I think it could use a little boost. If this was a straight up painting with no line work holding it together, it would take a lot more finesse, and the exact shades would matter a lot more. This is a little more forgiving, and because every step is built on the step below it, and I don't know, they all work together. It's not, this little highlight passes is not crucial because the line work and the basic coloring, and it's all holding it together already. This character's body is made up of ancient runes. So here I am drawing a generic rune pattern off to the side. None of this means anything. There are no hidden words or anything. And I just apply it over top of the face and hands. I forget what color, what blending mode I used for the layer, but just trying to imply that his body is made up of these runes. Didn't turn out exactly as I had imagined, but it's a very tricky thing to pull off, and I am quite pleased with the result. His hat is a magic item of some sort, and basically you can hold it up to the sky and see the star patterns at any time of day or night. No matter if you're inside or your view is blocked by a mountain or the earth itself. I think it's pretty cool. I played around with alpha channels to get his skin just looking the way I wanted it. It's described by the client as what you might see in a reflection in a pane of glass. So at first I just tried to lower the opacity of the head and hands, and that didn't look quite right. So in my mind, I don't know exactly how the reflections work, but the highlights that you would see in the reflection would be a little more opaque than the darker areas. So that's how I used the channels. Not my area of expertise with Photoshop, so it's hard for me to explain what I did, but I think it turned out all right. And here is the final image. Thanks for sticking around until the end. I saved you the trouble of going through the same exact process for the fae and the little bird and the mud at their feet. The reflection in the mud was quite easy. I just copied everything and flipped it and masked it into the water puddle shapes. And that's about it. Oh, and I applied a color filter on top of everything else. I made a gradient map of the image just to unify all the colors a little bit, all the highlights and shadows. All the shadows tint towards the same blue just a little bit, and there's a little bit more warmth in the highlights. I might make a future video on what I did there, but it was an easy step, and just to tweak the colors a little. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.